This is an example of a dialogue option where the player has to determine if it's safe to continue with the procedure. It's asking about allergies, and then later we'll ask about if you've eaten any food, and you're given the option to choose yes or no to continue. This is a more subjective question, asking the patient if they have any fears of needles, and giving you the option of what you can do to sort of reassure the patient that you'll be taking care of them. This question has an option of a positive response, a neutral response, and a negative response. And depending on what you choose, the patient will respond to you in kind. This is an example of the order of importance being emphasized during the simulation. It will warn you if you've done something out of order, so like you can't interact with any of the supplies until after you've washed your hands and put on gloves. You cannot interact with the blood vials until it's time to do the actual blood draw procedure, and you cannot interact with the patient until after they've been disinfected. This is the vein identification that I implemented. There's a projector with the vein image, and then you can hover over the different spots on the arm to see which vein you're focused on. When you select a vein, that will be the vein that the syringe aligns itself with when it's time for the blood draw. This is an example of the patient expressing more anxiety. You'll get another option to either calm them down or to just continue with the procedure without reassuring them. In this case, reassuring a patient gives you a bonus point, so when the scoring comes up at the end, you'll get an extra point at the end. And at the conclusion, you'll get a scorecard showing what tasks you completed, what bonuses you got, and your overall percentage.
Hey, it's Abdurrahman Al-Hamdan. So this is the book we used to kind of write or build our false and past situations. We submitted the first and second week of this project, and was published by the World Health Organization. It contains more than 100 pages, which we benefit a lot, or we had a lot of information in our project from. How we could take this project to another level. I found these websites where they offer phlebotomy certificates online, which I think our project has the potential to collaborate with these websites. We have this website, Phlebotomy Career Training. Another website offers kind of similar course or training course, Ellison. And this is another website. We could, I think, collaborate or have our project in their website. Yeah.
Hi, so I'm Titi Gonzalez, and on this phlebotomy project, I organized the presentations for the optimal flow when we're presenting to the class. I researched the best practices for administering, going through with like phlebotomy, like drawing blood, all the prep that is supposed to be established beforehand, any of the ultimate fails, like I guess that would make practicing phlebotomy dangerous, essentially, making sure that we had the safest, most accurate set of rules and set of rules and guidelines for our simulation. And I researched testimonies from patients as well as phlebotomists on dealing with less than ideal patients, which could mean violent or just they have nerves about blood and or needles and things like that. And I made the vacuum container blood collection tube, which is what they connect to the butterfly needle that is used to draw blood. They connect to that and it vacuums out the blood. And I assisted in the dialogue production for the difficult veins portion of the difficult veins and patient portion of the simulation.
Hello, I'm Tushar, and this is my contribution for the third project. So I basically worked on the game design documentation, in which I documented concepts for theming, gameplay, and view. So just learning what is the theme of the general game, it's in a medical situation, and what are the assets that can be added. And then I also worked on user skills and difficulty level, basically documenting them in our design documentation, meaning what are the things that are causing difficulty, what are the things and how are we trafficking them, and what are some of the ways we are inducing that difficulty level. For example, pass-fail conditions. For example, there's a scoring system that is tracking incorrect choices, and then also having difficult and uncooperative patients that are also in the game that add to the difficulty level. So I also documented that. And then the third thing I documented was documentation for scoring. So how is scoring done in our game? What is the concept behind it? And how does that contribute for a person to pass or fail this game? And towards the end, I compiled all the research that has been done throughout this project to support all our decisions and all our designs. And I compiled them in the design research documentation as well.
So for my part of the project, I did some research on the best practice for communicating with a patient during a phlebotomy, including, bedside manner, and just the general guidelines for how to speak to your patient when you are drawing their blood. I scripted some dialogue based on these guidelines, and I also did a small amount of coding based on a template that Nate was so kind to give me. I made a simple vein texture that is projected onto the arm, and I also made a sharp spin model and I animated it opening up. So I can really quick show some of this. So here we have the model for the sharp spin. I made it fairly low poly. And I made a texture for it. And the animation is pretty simple, just, 2 keyframes blended between each other, opening, and then in order to close it, the animation can be reversed. It can also be sped up as required. I also made this simple vein texture like I mentioned. It's white so that the color can be changed in editor to better match what color a vein would look like on certain skin tones. And also here is some of the simple code that I put lines into so that it can be implemented into the simulation itself.
So I helped TT and Sarah with designing the simulation's dialogue. My involvement was more focused around the gamification of the conversations the player would have with the patients. Having a mother that works in the healthcare industry, I always hear about patient mishandling and poor hospitality, and it's a shame to hear. So it's an important aspect to me that I wanted to incorporate into the dialogue. So I kept hospitality and patient handling in mind while I helped with the dialogue, wanting to have the players keep those same things in mind alongside the rest of the training so they're prepared for the real world.
So for our phlebotomy simulation, in each stage, players are assigned various tasks to complete. So for this reason, we required a task tracking function. So we looked at the existing task tracking function, and we were having some trouble getting it to work, as well as generally it didn't provide enough functionality for what we wanted. So we had to create our own system, and this required implementing and modifying the OMH task manager in the files. So generally, our implementation works as follows. So upon completion, players' performance will be summarized as a final score, accuracy, and success. So players can complete 3 types of tasks, which include normal task, required task, and optional task. So on the right here, you can briefly see us testing out the collection of a syringe package, as well as the system notifying you that you have completed the task of collecting a syringe. Now, onto the task types and mechanics. Generally, the normal task just affects the score, the accuracy, and the success of the stage. So you can see on the right, we have the score in the top left, next to it followed by the accuracy or completion, and then in the top right, we have the overall success of the stage, and below it gives you a summary of all the tasks that you could have completed, as well as the additional tasks that you have completed. So going back to the types of tasks, we have now the optional task. So this is different from the normal task, as it is not counted in accuracy or success. So for this, we did this for the reason that should you want to implement some sort of branching or multiple choice task where you get different amounts of points based off which task you choose. On the right, you can see that we use good bedside manner as an example. So in this case, we could have a good bedside manner, neutral bedside manner, and negative bedside manner. You can also have these give different points. So for negative bedside manner, we have a negative value, so it will act as a penalty. Neutral bedside manner could be 0, and as well bedside manner could be +3. However, should we have implemented this using normal tasks, they would have also been counted in the overall task completion and affect the accuracy as well. We didn't want this, so for this reason we had to implement a different type of task. Next, we have the required task. So these are very much like normal tasks, in which they affect the score and the accuracy. However, what is very different is that should you fail to complete one of these required tasks, it will result in a total fail of the entire stage. So this also adds a nice feature that should you miss this stage, it will also keep it down here in the summary as required task missed. So those are the various types of tasks that we implemented, and we felt this was sufficient enough to work for our simulation. Next, we have the task tracking in the scenario files. So as I mentioned, we had to modify the OMH score tracker. So setup for this tracker is fairly simple. So in the setup file for a given stage, you just simply have to first create all the tasks you want to. So here we have it attaching the stage folder prefix to the file itself. So we run that file, which instantiates all the tasks that we need for that stage. Nextly, creating tasks is fairly simple. So this can be done using the add task message and providing a name, value, and type, which is known internally as a priority. So in the middle image on the right, we have 3 examples of creating each of the types of tasks. So we have good bedside manner, followed by its value, which is 3, and then the priority, which 0 signifies an optional task. Next, we have a task for grabbing a green vial, which has a value of 2, and a priority of 1, meaning it's a regular task. At the very bottom, we have a task for washing hands, which we know in a phlebotomy is a very critical task that can result in a fail of the entire simulation if you fail to do so. So